that they've resigned, but they're resigning from their post. Why have they taken money out of that? Hopefully, with us going into administration now, that will be looked into and investigated by the administrators. My concern would be James Rule appointed the administrators. Does he know the administrator? I'm a little bit at the moment
skeptical about the administrator.
Yeah, just with things that have been seen on the internet with regards to one of the directors when you look into them, and you just think, do they know each other? I'm just a little bit skeptical that he's brought these administrators in, not wanted to be there at the press conferences, washed his hands of the club. I just wonder what has been going on within the last 6 months in the club. Has money been just flitted away within the last couple of months so that the club has been took to this point where we're on the brink of liquidation?
Yeah, it is very scary. I mean, one of the things that's been talked about is trying to raise money. So I think we'll cover the different options there, I think, to kind of close things out and hope for a bit more positivity. But one of the things about the getting money in and stuff, there's talk about maybe potentially selling players on. Now, I don't think there's any club that will pay a fee for these players.
I agree.
Not with the drastic nature of the situation, and the administrators being honest about it being a week left or what have you doesn't help with the value of any of these players. And the other worry is, I suppose, with lots of clubs up to the salary cap, can clubs even afford to bring these players in? I mean, we know Warrington and Castleford have got dispensation from injured players, so they might have some room now. But the other thing that happened before is when Crusaders went belly up on the eve of the season. That saw to those players being allowed to join clubs without there being a salary cap value hit on that. And I think Widnes probably were one of the clubs that benefited from that in their first year back in Super League, because they brought in 4 or 5 Crusaders players at that time. And probably a couple of them have been some of your best players over the last 5 years or so. You know, Reece Hambry, Hep Cahill. But you don't know if they kept paying those players over the odds later into their careers. You know, Reece Hambry was a passenger last year at times. Was he then overpaid and have the club not been able to force an issue with players when their value to the club drops? And maybe that's where some of the overspending's occurred. But yeah, back to raising money. So I can't see that being an avenue. I can see it being a cost-cutting exercise with the higher paid players being taken off the books. So you'd expect people like Inu, people like Hansen, people like Cahill, people like Gelling. And I can't really think of too many beyond that group, to be completely honest, who might be paid reasonably well. That you might be seeing them go out the door, and then you're left with all these kids, aren't you? And minus 12 points, but you'd be on minus 8 points. Is that right?
Yeah, that was a positive. I said at least it's only minus 8 by the time we've got the 4 points we've already gathered over this season.
And that was a great start to the season on the field as well. And do you wonder that maybe that wasn't that the one of the other things to raise money? We now look at it in a different light. Was these special pushing the ticket sales with kind of the discounts and stuff for the 2 games, the Sheffield game and then the game after that. I forget who that next home game is, or would have been, or will be.
Featherstone Rovers.
Featherstone. So you're pushing the double tickets and the deals on those games to get in an aggregate crowd of 10,000 across the 2, which is really great, but it puts that into a different light now. This was a desperate plea to get money into the club so that they could show these investors as a support base, possibly artificially, but show these investors that there's a support base, which would make it more attractive. So that was a way that they tried to bring money into the club, obviously, and it mustn't have worked to the extent that they wanted it to, otherwise we probably wouldn't be sat here. How do you feel about the club coming cap in hand to supporters now, then?
It's always the supporters when anything like this happens that the clubs go cap in hand to. And I think because Widnes, or fans of any club, but in this instance Widnes, fans of Widnes are very loyal and want the club to survive. So they're going to try and give as much as they can. And especially people are struggling financially anyway. And a lot of people have bought season tickets. bought tickets up front and stuff like that. So I've already put into the club, but you will find people will start giving money because at the moment we've got the Vikings quids in are currently trying to recruit more members, and I believe yesterday some of the players were ringing round members to see if they would join the Vikings quids in. So the Chapel Howells were there. I believe Willie Isa was even there ringing, despite not being a Widnes player anymore.
Yeah.
And I believe they've had 300 new members yesterday alone. You've got an independent. There's a girl who's on Twitter who has set up a GoFundMe page. Now that money, they've said last night, will go to Vikings quids in, and this morning it was at 19,400, and that was from donations from not just Widnes fans but fans of other clubs and throughout not just England but abroad as well. And then there's another Widnes independent group. They've got an emergency meeting this afternoon for Widnes fans at Parklands. Their memberships, I think it was £1 to join, and they're going to have a meeting and there's going to be discussions about the administration. But they've said they're going to donate some money into the same pot, so all the money will be in one place. So it's good that we're getting this money. But I read somewhere that to save the club, they're looking at 250,000. I don't know where that figure came from. Was on from Granada Report. So
yeah, well, I think the fundraising target for the Vicky GoFundMe is 300,000, isn't it? So
it is.
So it's all in that sort of ballpark. Yeah, that's viqi.co.uk is where people can go to make. I think you can make one-off donations, or sort of like a subscribe to a membership scheme. Well, the concern with these things is where's that money going to go? But if I'm right, the Vicky scheme has been around for longer than just this crisis period.
It has, and it's helped out the club a couple of times with players, and you sometimes hear when the players come out, they were purchased with the help of Vikings quids in, and they're sometimes sponsored by them. So yeah, they have been around for a good number of years. They've not just come out with this incident. So hopefully there'll be some transparency from all of these groups, and they'll be saying, "But this is the money we've got, and this is what we're doing with it." Because what we need to be now as a club is open and transparent, and say this is the way forward, and this is how things are looking. We can't be hiding in dark corners and saying, "Oh yeah, everything's rosy and we're getting there." We need to be transparent with the fans.
Yeah, because I think that Widnes have got 2 or 3 real assets around the club. The community work that was done last year obviously has possibly come at some expense to some of the commercial work, but certainly got Widnes Viking lots of plaudits, won them awards, and was a real positive in a real negative season last year. The crop of young players that they're still being able to produce. I mean, they were one of two championship clubs who had players named in the England youth squad that was announced over the back end of last week. So that's a real positive. And then the final one is the fans. I agree with you in terms of how loyal and determined a fan base that Widnes Vikings have. It's a lot smaller fan base than it maybe was 15 years ago. It's probably a third smaller, isn't it? Unfortunately, at the moment, it seems, in terms of when you look at the stands. But people like you, other listeners that we have getting in touch with the show as well, we know that there's an amount of loyalty there that isn't going to be swayed by the way it's been run so much. But last year there was a little bit of a push against the way it was being run, wasn't it? Wasn't there, with people staying away for the first time I can really recall as well. So that's another thing, that this is a clean slate, a new start, and this organisation here, these quids in people, are definitely looking at the bigger picture and a more sustainable picture, rather than just wanting to throw the money right into the hands of the administrators as it stands and see that money frittered away, kind of like what we saw at the demise of Bradford Bulls when they had the bucket collections and everyone threw money in, and that was about 10 years ago, and we haven't really learned loads from that. So hopefully the Vikings, these Vikings groups, can show some learning from that. So how optimistic maybe is a big word right now for you guys, but how are you feeling about the way forward? Do you think there is one?
I don't know. It differs from day to day. Yesterday, I was reading the stuff on Twitter yesterday. You feel a bit more positive. It's hope more than anything now. You're in this situation. Hopefully, with administration now, we become a little bit more tempting to these investors.
They'll be able to see everything, won't they? The administrators won't be maybe as potentially duplicitous as possibly the board of directors have been with some of their treatment of the facts. So the administrators you don't feel would be doing that, because their job is to avoid liquidation, not to get it into liquidation.
I just think with this administration now, I think hopefully come Monday morning, because obviously weekend nothing happens. Hopefully Monday morning some investors will be interested, we'll look into it, and hopefully by Thursday we'll have a club back and we'll be playing on Sunday next week. Would be the best news, wouldn't it? That would be brilliant.
Enough funding has been secured to get the game on next week, and that would even be more enticing to like the panel of investors, because the club ownership, I understand O'Connor only owns 25% of the club now, but he's carrying, he carries the sort of burden almost as being the owner, being the man in charge, but he isn't really. He only owns 25% of the club and has been distanced himself from the club for a couple of years now. So there must be within that scope for people to make investments. It's about getting the right group of people together, I suppose, to get enough money in. And I think what we've lost in rugby league is the real idea of the benefactor owner kind of situation. Like O'Connor did this. He took all that plaudits and stuff when he saved the club back in 2007. But in reality, you shouldn't be thinking you're getting into this to make money. You should be doing this as something that you're already doing with the money you've made. And anything on top of that is a bonus. And sadly, the selfish, greedy world that has been created since 1979 has turned that view around, and sport's supposed to be viewed as a business now. And the people that are supposed to fund that business are us, the supporters. And in reality, we're not customers, we're supporters, and so we're there to be exploited. And hopefully this gives a sea change, that Widnes Vikings can be a club that lead the way in supporters leading this change. So I really do hope this Vicky campaign can raise enough money quickly enough to be seen as a potential sustainable solution for at least part ownership of the club. But they have to get onto the decision-making process of this club, don't they? Because that's the way that you get the transparency that you want. As long as these people aren't doing it for their own, for their own benefit, to be in the in-club rather than be representing all of the fans, then I think this group do want to represent all of the fans. I think that there's good in this group. So get this group part of that strategy to go forward, and you're starting to talk about fans having a real say in the club, and the fans are the real important people behind your club. And like you said, the fans of any club are the integral part. If you don't have fans coming through the door, you haven't got a club at all. I just want from this, if hopefully everything will turn out nice and we'll have the club back up and running next week. I just want the club and whoever takes over now to be transparent, to be open and honest with the fans. For the first time in a couple of years, there was a positivity around the club at the beginning of the season. Kieran Pirtle has been fantastic for the club since he's come in. The players are playing for themselves, because the first game against Halifax, that buzz that was around the stands, the players on the field, and there was the positivity in Twitter and Facebook. They were interacting with the fans. I just hope that all this then continues, because we were a once great club. We may never get back to that point where we're going to be great and winning Super League trophies and stuff like that. Great green shirt, just 30 years on from your greatest achievement, arguably. So, definitely a great club, without a doubt.
So we just got to see, but hopefully by the end of next week, the club will be back up and running. We'll be playing. The fans will be there again, getting behind the team. And we just move forward. We move forward as one, and we push Widnes Vikings on for the rest of the season.
I think that's what we all hope. You, me, all your fellow Widnes fans, all my fellow wider rugby league people who are interested in the story and want the survival of the Vikings, a club we've